Good morning to all of you, and welcome to our Friday Namaste session where we have been dropping bombs all week long and having fun doing it. And I guess we're going to do the same thing today. We're going to look at, the only single issue that you have, the only block to your awareness of who and where you are right now. If that's not a bomb, I don't know what is, especially when we make it this simple, when we realize that the only problem I have is me, is my identification, my ideas, my concepts of who I believe myself to be. But before we get into that, I want to share something with all of you. I spent most of the day yesterday working on a song. Imagine that. But this is a very special song because I guess you could you could say that this is the real prayer of Saint Francis. So many of you probably know, and I hate to tell people this who don't know because they're always so disappointed, that St. Francis of Assisi did not write the prayer of St. Francis. No one knows for sure who wrote the prayer, but it is theorized that it was written by a French Franciscan around the beginning of the 20th century, and it was attributed to St. Francis. The question is, where did whoever wrote this prayer get the inspiration? And what many people believe is that it came from an actual prayer that Francis wrote. Francis wrote a long, very long series of admonitions to his friars, to his brothers. And these are basically him saying what to do, what not to do, what to avoid, a lot of them, and difficult to read sometimes. But there's one at the very, very end, number 27, I believe it is, that is so beautiful, and many people believe it to be the original prayer of St. Francis, the inspiration that whoever wrote this prayer used, perhaps this French Franciscan. So I took that admonition yesterday and I wrote this song. So we're going to begin with this meditation. I made it into a video, so just go ahead and sit back and relax, and we'll watch that now. Okay. I was up till about 1 a.m. last night working on that just so I could share it with you guys. So let's take a deep breath. As I said before, we're going to be dropping a bomb today on the single impediment or block to you experiencing heaven right now, to realizing that there is only that and that you could access that unified state anytime you want. But there's only one thing that blocks us, and that is the concept ultimately that we have of ourselves, the identity, the ideas that we have of who we think we are outside of that state of unified consciousness. So we're going to be looking at that today, and we're going to be looking at it in a very specific way. First of all, I don't know if you've ever seen the Netflix show The Crown, all about the royal family in England. It's quite a good show. I've been watching it. The new season just dropped, so I've been watching it lately. And this year is all about Prince Charles meeting Lady Diana and Margaret Thatcher and different things. So that whole era. And it's been so fascinating to watch this from the perspective of concept. Also, I was talking with Christina yesterday about when she was in Los Angeles. She's an amazing massage therapist and healer, and she's worked with a lot of very, very well-known stars and people whose self-concept has been so clearly defined and maintained and encouraged that they find themselves, without even knowing, ultimately, just as we don't know how locked in we are to our own self-concept. When you are a member of the royal family, or when you are a massive star that everyone's looking at you and encouraging the maintaining of that self-concept, it becomes very, very difficult to leave. We did talk about someone that I think is doing a pretty good job and just completely demolishes his own concept, and that's Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is extraordinary. He really is right on the edge there. On one hand, being Jim Carrey, being this extraordinary talent. On the other hand, knowing that Jim Carrey is not who he really is, and that there is no such thing as a Jim Carrey, just as there's no such thing as a Jimmy or Joy or any one of us. These are identities. These are these suits of armor, like we talked about before, that we put on to block and to protect us from the truth of who we are. What seems vulnerable to the ego, the heart, for example, we believe that if we don't wear this armor, our heart is going to be vulnerable, but the opposite is true. When we allow our awakened heart to extend and expand, this is our strength. The concept falls away, and we're left only with this unified field of allness, of everythingness. And when you look at like the royal family, for example, watching The Crown, it's been extraordinary to watch, say, the character of Prince Charles. And the more that self-concept is maintained and protected, the less human we become, let alone the less connected to our divine nature we are. Watching this show, if you've seen it, you see that the royal family is so isolated in specialness. They're so isolated in the belief that people should be bowing before them, and what order do they bow before them, and how deep do they, all these ridiculous ideas, they become even less human, let alone being even more disconnected from their divine selves. And this is so important for us to see, because we do the same thing, just in a smaller, more subtle way. But everything we do ultimately is to maintain that self-concept. And society will always amplify it for us to protect it, just as they did with Charles and Lady Diana. There's a great scene in the episode I watched last night, where Lady Diana is beginning to feel like this is not a good idea. I should just leave this now. Well, I still can. But then she walks to the window. I don't know if you remember the royal wedding and all of the the hoopla around it. It was extraordinary. She walks to the window. There are thousands of people outside her window, just encouraging her to maintain this self-concept. And so it gets harder and harder to leave until either one of two things happens. Either we just have a breakdown where something happens that cracks us open, or through a mystical experience, we realize this is not what I really want. Of course, the highest concept that we have, that we put up on that pinnacle, is our concept of God. And literally, what we hold to be God is just a concept. It's not real. There is no such thing as a God out there watching you. We talked about that earlier this week. We need to let go of even that self-concept so that something within us can erupt in a spontaneous ejaculatory experience where we can know the allness of God. So, of course, for me, that often comes in the form of something spoken or written by Thomas Merton, this amazing Catholic monk who lived until, I think, 1968. Yeah, I won't go into, I was just thinking about how Thomas Merton in the end flashed into light, but I won't talk about that. That's for another bomb session. But I do want to share something. As I said the other day, I was watching a video of Merton talking to the class of novices there at the Gethsemane Monastery near Louisville. And remember, this is coming from a Catholic monk, and what he's about to share with us is the answer. And yet it is so elevated and so far beyond any construct or religion or anything, that this is someone who has really experienced this, the vibration of this. And this is what we're here for, is to have a direct, whole experience of a non-conceptual, non or unidentified awakening into the truth of who we are and have always been. So let me share this bit from Merton, and you'll see what I mean. He says, continuous concentration on the concept of God or the image of God is not only hard to do, but in the long run, it's bad for you. Once again, imagine, this is a Catholic priest saying, and Catholics are really good at concepts and images of God. There's probably no religion that's better than the Catholic Church, with the statues and the image and the paintings. These are all images, and he's saying that those are bad for you ultimately in the long run. It involves strain to have a continuous concentration on the concept of God. It involves strain, and it is artificial. Artificial means it's not real. If I insist on constantly thinking about our Lord on the cross, for example, I won't be able to do it. I'll have to keep referring back to an image or a concept rather than a spontaneous eruption of love. A spontaneous eruption of love. Instead of concentrating on an idea or an image, simply cultivate, and here's the answer, simply cultivate an openness to God and an awareness of God in your awakened heart. Cultivate a heart-opened awakening experience. Let the heart reach out and grope for the divine. This is the prayer he's talking about. He also says, and I bolded this next sentence, do it in a general, non-specialized way. Don't let there be an image that you're clinging to. Do it in an open, non-generalized or non-specific way. Don't fix your mind on an image. Prayer should be as simple as breathing. When you breathe in and out, you don't think about breathing in and out. There's no thought about it. You just allow the breath to flow. And it's the same with God. Allow the love of God to flow through you, and you'll constantly be in prayer, just like you're constantly breathing. You're not thinking about it. There's no image. There's no goal with your breathing. It's just something you do. And that that eruption of the awakened heart, it should be as simple as that. A little bit more. Merton asks, what's the simplest way to do this? And he says, maintain an awareness of love. Allow prayer to erupt from within you, an ejaculatory prayer. The objective is to keep one's heart awake. This is what the Sufis do. I love that he refers back to the Sufis. You can't force God to come to you, but God will come to you on his own if your heart is awake. God will come to you on its own if your heart is awake, if your heart is ready, if that eruption of love that springs forth spontaneous from you becomes your life, literally, becomes everything. And this is what we do here every day. This is what we describe as the experience. It's not a thought, it's not a concept, there's no object. It's the release of all of that. Allowing our mind to focus not on a specific image or form, but to simply relax into the formless, which is what we truly are. So I think at the end of the week here, this is a good place for us to launch, I guess, into the next spiral inward. That all we're really doing here is we're letting go. We're surrendering. We're not trying to accomplish God or accomplish love. Love has already been accomplished within us. All we're really doing is we're allowing those images and those blocks and that armor to fall away so we can simply return to that grace that has always been present within. Heaven. You can call it heaven if you want. It's right there. Literally, heaven is right there. You can touch it at any moment. So why are we waiting? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our dear sister, Vicki, and hear where she's going to take this next.
Good morning, Jimmy. I love that new song. I love that new song. Simply do this, then that won't happen. I love that song. And maybe you'll write it and send it out to us just as a prayer. It was beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah. And so really what I'm hearing, it's simplified down to one problem again, one solution, and that fear is what misidentity is, and true identity is love. And when we practice the presence of love, rather than thinking we're practicing the presence of God, even, because as we practice the presence of love, we're practicing the experience of what is divine. And simply do that, and everything else does fall away. If I'm consistent and true to that, what isn't true just falls away. It is a way of staying out of our own way. And when we're naturally in the flow and things are effortless and delightful, and our next step just unfolds in front of us, it's because we are in the way of love. And we know when we've missed it, when we've gone astray, because we bumped into something. And the simple solution isn't to analyze it or figure it out. It's to return to love. You just described it so simply. It's a way of life. It's a way, and we're all at the brink of where we are either have been or are being cracked open collectively. That's why it's so helpful and so, I guess, just so precious that if we have been cracked open, we stay in the presence of love so that we don't support false identities in our brothers anywhere, no matter the issue. But that as we stay in the frequency of love, we communicate that, we strengthen that, and all the other thought systems of false identity and fear have to fall away. That's so simple. It is childlike. Living in the presence of love is living in present awareness. It is what opens us to delight that comes to us in whatever appears in front of us if we let it and if we're willing to see it. Practice the presence of love. Thank you, Jimmy.
I love that, Vicki. Yeah, putting it that way makes it so simple. Not
Yeah.
thinking that we're here to practice the presence of God or to seek some God out there. You know, there are lots of ways to do that, but ultimately it all comes down to the presence of love. If we can just simply rest there and seek only to expand and to extend that, which is what whatever God is does, whatever this force of love is, that's what it does. It expands, it extends, it shares, it awakens, it enlivens. And that's all we're here to do, and to share that, to be, this is why we come together, because we join in that. We're joining in that right now. And that's exciting and it's fun. That's why you guys keep coming back, because there's something that happens, something alchemical that happens within us when we feel this sharing, this joining, and we make this our priority. So thank you, Vicky. How about Teddy? I saw you're here. Would you like to share anything?
Well, actually, I had a big bomb dropped on me this morning.
You look in heaven, by the way. You've got this like heavenly glow.
Well, you know, I've had a problem lately. And, you know, it sounds stupid and it sounds trite, but like the only reason why people can write books and have conferences about A Course in Miracles is because having been sued on 2 continents and won the case, I freed the copyright. And that allowed everybody's books to be published. But I never get invited to any of these things, like the thing Bill Free did and stuff like that, and or Tony Ponticello. And I keep wondering why. And I get told by a close friend that it's because I attack people. And I was sitting there today and I'm just looking at it. And all of a sudden, Jesus came to me and he showed me something. What he showed me was him in the courtyard overturning the tables of the money changers and people who charge for money for spiritual things. And I got it. I turn over their tables because they charge money for the things that they're using the Course in Miracles for. And Jesus showed me that's the function that I have. Protect everything you value by the act of giving it away. And they write books, sell books, make money on the books. You promote the Course in Miracles as what the books are written about. And yet they're the money changers in the temple courtyard. And the temple is free and open for anybody to walk in. And they're outside in the courtyard, refusing to walk in because they need the money rather than utilize the principles that Jesus gave them, which is why I give the book away freely. So I had this big thing and I just couldn't understand it. I couldn't get why Bill Free, who lived here, John Mundy, who I told his book would be the #1 primer, like every major teacher started out in this house, came to the academy and left because they couldn't. Gary Renard, I read his book before he was even published. David Hoffmeister, he came to the academy for 1 day. And all of these people write books and make money. And none of them ever asked me, say hello or anything. And I kept wondering, like, what's going on here? And Jesus came and he showed me this morning the money changers in the courtyard rather than those who go in the temple freely and really do protect everything they value by the act of giving it away. So I am so grateful that Jesus is my best friend.
Thank you, Teddy. You've definitely been given a major, in my opinion, major role in this. And that's why I always invite you. That's why I love having you here every day. That's why I've had you speak at conferences, because this isn't such an uncompromising message. What you share, protect what you have by giving it away, protect what you love by giving it away. Uncompromising. That's the key. Thank you, Teddy. That was beautiful. We support and love you. All right. Let's go over to Namaste. Go ahead and unmute yourselves there. And let's see what's going on the other side of the wall. Good morning, everybody.
Okay.
So Christina, bring it back to the angelic, soft, beautiful presence that you always.
I might surprise you one day.
I hope so.
I would like to extend an invitation. And if you're willing, for all of us to just check in for a moment. Bethel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yesterday she couldn't hear me, so I was just checking. Not that this message is just for her. To check in and notice, so far as I am here together, am I listening to these words through the mind? Or is the mind still and quiet, and am I hearing through the heart? Just noticing. And if I have been listening through the mind, I invite you to drop the attention to the heart space and listen from there. And the reason I am inviting us to do this together today, to be this together today, is because of the words that are being used. Sometimes there's resistance to using the word heart or love, because if we are conceptualizing those words, we are experiencing them as the human heart and the emotional love. And that is not the love, the heart that this poem that you read, Jimmy, is speaking of. This heart is that clear, open, receptive, empty spaciousness that abides within all of us, that we all spring forth from. So if I am listening, receptive from this space, then I have the opportunity to receive the truth that is being presented. If I am listening with my ear and hearing and interpreting through the mind, one will notice that there is a contraction. That which I hear is then thought about, identified with, and more thoughts come in addition to that, either reminding me of this or reminding me of that, or agreeing with this or disagreeing with that. But if I just allow myself to rest, I am able to receive truth. I am able to receive the essence that God is within me, within all of us. The saying, the truth, he who keeps his mind stayed upon thee shall be kept in perfect peace. Thee, as you spoke of, Jimmy, is not the concept that we have of God. It is this clear, silent, receptive space that we all are. As I keep my attention there, as I rest, as I allow the mind to rest there, God is revealed within. And there is only perfect peace, the peace that passes understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for bringing us back to the heart. That's all Thomas Merton wrote about and spoke about, and it's the only thing we're here for. Keep coming back to the awakened heart. Thank you. Anyone else there at Namaste want to share anything? Anybody? I'm just looking around to see if anybody's coming up. Okay, let's go ahead then, and we'll